Hi guys, it's me, Mr. Bertoch, your incredibly handsome science teacher, and in this video we are going to, well, we're going to commit mass murder. Maybe not mass murder, not right now anyway, because I'm only going to be executing one innocent frog. But I will say that during my time as a science teacher, I have overseen the mass murder of probably, I don't know, 3,000, 4,000 frogs. Anyway, we're in this video, I'm going to walk you through the execution and dismemberment of frogs. And we're going to do that step by step. This goes along with the lab sheet, a lab sheet. And if you came across this video somewhere besides getting there from the lab sheet, then you can go get the lab sheet, which is available for free on handsomescienceteacher.com. So open your lab sheet and follow along and pause the video at each stage, each step, because I'm going to walk you through exactly what to do, and it will go right along with the lab sheet. I have indeed participated in the dissection of thousands of frogs, and I can do this pretty much in my sleep. However, I've never done it this way before. I've never done it through a computer screen. So I literally am looking at the computer screen so that I can make sure I keep it centered and dissecting it that way. And it's backwards. So when I go one way, it goes the other way. And that's confusing to my brain. So we'll see how well this works. But when you get senor or senorita frog, senor sapo, it's going to look pretty much like this. And you can get a frog in a lot of places. Do not use a live frog, because that is, in fact, mean and cruel, and we want to be kind. So we're going to start with a frog that's been humanely executed, right? But you can get these, you can buy them online from different places. We have them available on handsomescienceteacher.com. And this is what you're going to get exactly precisely right here. If you order on handsomescienceteacher.com, they're available other places as well. If you don't have a frog, or rather, if you don't want to order a frog from anywhere, if you don't want to use a frog, then you can, there are online frog dissections that you can use as well. But really, I recommend that you use a actual frog, because it's one thing to see it digitally, and it's a whole nother thing to actually literally get your hands dirty. So when you get your frog, when you get Senor Sapo, Mr. Frog, yeah, you're going to see that there is a little, I don't know how well this picks up in the video, but right here, there's a little, this is hard to do it backwards. There's a little niche right here. And you can just tear it open and open up Mr. Frog, and it would be a good idea, and I should have had this ready, to have a container of some sort. Don't tell my wife, this is her lunch container, so we're not going to tell her that. That's a secret. Okay, and we're going to put Mr. Frog into my wife's lunch container like that. But don't worry, I'll wash it out really good before I give it back to her. So when you get Mr. Frog, before you do anything, or Miss Frog, we want to examine and look at, and just take a few minutes and, appreciate the outside of the frog. So in the lab sheet, the first part 1, asks you to examine the outside of the frog. And what you're doing is just kind of filling, because you're going to compare in a minute with the outside to the inside. So when we learned about, in another video, we learned about tissues. Do you remember what the epithelial tissue was? And if you haven't watched that video, you can go watch that. It's on the Handsome Science Teacher channel. Epithelial tissue is a protective tissue, an outside layer that protects the animal. It will fill that. Okay, that's right there. Epithelial tissue all around the entire outside of the frog. So just take a minute and feel how tough it is, right? It's not easy to rip. I can like squish it with my fingernails and it doesn't really puncture, thank goodness. I mean, can you imagine if you like use your fingernail on yourself and it punctured and how awful that would be? So now that you've finished part 1 of the video of the lab, we're going to go ahead and open him up and we're going to look at his muscular system. So part 2 is to examine his muscular system. Well, his muscular system, his muscles, his muscles are underneath his skin, the epithelial tissue, okay? So we got to get rid of this skin. How are we going to get rid of his skin so that we can see the muscles that are underneath? Notice that Senor Frog right here has, I don't know how well you can see that. Right here on the side, you can pinch his sides and he giggles. He goes, hee hee. Okay, not really. He would giggle. Well, I don't know if frogs are actually ticklish or not. But anyway, you can pinch the sides like that, okay? The sides of his belly. Just like you can pinch the sides of my fat belly. Because his skin is not attached really well. It is attached, but not super well, and especially not on the sides. So I'm going to pinch out the sides a little bit. I'm going to take a pair of scissors, and I'm going to cut a little tiny hole. And the scissors I'm using are not particularly specialized scissors, right? I'm just using any old regular scissors because sometimes we think we have to use like surgical scissors or something. Okay, I will say these scissors aren't working very good. Okay, there we go. But you don't need surgical scissors. Okay, you can dissect a frog with regular old sewing scissors, but don't tell your parents. Don't actually do that unless you want to get disinherited. So once I have a hole in him, I can cut around his entire body, and I can separate the two parts of his body in half, making a frog shirt and frog pants. Oh, I should have mentioned, by the way, if you want to wear gloves, feel free to do that. I don't wear gloves because I've done so many of these. Okay, but now I have created a frog shirt. See, I've cut all the way around him, and I've created frog shirt and frog pants. So he is now separated, his skin is separated into two parts, and I can start to see under there his muscular system. But first, I have to finish undressing him. So I'll start with his frog pants. I'll take his frog pants off, and you just kind of got to work at it. Okay, they're going to come off just like pants. So you just kind of got to, just like you're undressing a toddler, right? If you've ever had to undress or dress a toddler, it's just kind of the same thing. You're just going to take the pants over his knee and just kind of pull the pants off of him. And it just kind of pulls off like pants. See, I have a pair of frog pants that are taken off. They're inside out. And my frog's bottom is naked, but he's still wearing his frog shirt. Okay, so you can see, I don't know how well you can see that because the color's not there. The back side is a little bit more obvious. So I have a frog, a pantsless frog, but he still has a shirt. So now I need to take his frog shirt off. And now, oh, there's a little piece right there. Now, Senor Frog is naked. So I have a naked frog with no skin. This is his muscular system. You can see the muscles, right? Like right here on his leg. There's one muscle right here, and I can separate it. And there's another muscle right here, and I can make him do aerobics. And 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and pause and 1 and 2. Anyway. And the muscles are held together. If you look up at his upper leg, so there's, well, that one's coming off, but there's quite a few muscles right here as well. And they are connected. Do you remember what connects different tissues together? If you don't know, that's okay. You can watch the tissue video on tissues, but it's called connective tissue. And so I can take my scissors and I can just very lightly cut through the connective tissue because the epithelial tissue is gone, that really tough protective tissue. And all I'm left with are the muscle tissues and the connective tissues on the inside, and they are not super strong. They're really easy to break. So I've got 3 muscles right here, and I'm just separating them with the scissors very gently. Okay, so this muscle and that muscle, and then the muscle right here. And I want you to take your fingernail, and remember when we first started with the outside of the frog, I had you kind of pinch him. Do the same here. Pinch his muscles and just kind of see how easy it is to grab a piece of that and rip it off. Okay, it's nothing to it. I can easily use my fingernails to rip that tissue apart. That's why you have epithelial tissue. That's why you have skin. Can you imagine how awful that would be? You're the same way. Your muscles on the inside of your body are just as easy. I can pinch off pieces of them, no problem. Poor frog. I'm sorry. I pinched your muscles apart. But if you had no skin, every time you bumped into a door or something, a little chunk of your arm would come off. So the epithelial tissue protects us. I want you to pause the video, and I want you to take your scissors. I'm going to turn them forward now on the inside, okay, where the muscles are a little bit bigger. And I want you to just work all his muscles and divide them so you can see them. So you're just carefully with your scissors. Any cheap pair of scissors will work just fine. Dividing all of his muscles, so that you can see all the different muscles. Get as many of them separated as you possibly can. All right, now we're going to open Senor Sapo, Mr. Frog, and we're going to see inside of his belly. So get down here on his legs, this is all meat and bone, and these 2 legs are all meat and bone, and he dances for us. Hello. But in this area, those are all his guts. Incidentally, have you ever wondered why, aside from sick desire to murder frogs, that science teachers have you dissect a frog, but in particular a frog? We also have students dissect pigs, and we have students dissect other things like sharks and worms and stuff. But why a frog in particular, and why a pig? And the answer is because they are very analogous to humans, okay? A frog has all of the same organs you do, and they're pretty much in the same place. They're a little bit different shape, but they're the same organs, most of them, and they are in the same place, which is nice. So we're going to open the frog so that we can see inside of him. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to cut out his belly here in the front. And that's going to let us see a really good view of inside of him. When we do this, we want to be careful because we don't want to puncture any of his organs on the inside because you want to actually see what they look like. So again, there's not really a wrong way to do this. Just be careful. I'm just going to kind of pinch there and do a little nip, not going too deep so I don't get the organs underneath. And then just kind of carefully, this is a fat guy. He's got some good fat bodies in there. I'm just going to carefully cut around his belly. I have cut this flap of muscle. There's several muscles there. That's like his 6-pack. Right, you can see it right there. You can see his 6-pack. I don't know how. There you go. The video picks it up. So just cut off his 6-pack. And I've got his insides, and you have the same thing, right? If I cut you open, if I'm a horrible, mean person, and I cut you open, I'm going to see pretty much the same things. I'm going to go up his, get back in the video. It's just hard for me to watch two things at once. So I'm going to cut his chest open, and your scissors will cut through his chest, no problem. Although I think I just damaged my scissors. I did indeed. Give me a second. I'm going to go get a different pair of scissors. So I've gone ahead and got me a better pair of scissors because those ones I had are really cheap. They're my kids'. These are my wife's scissors, but we're not going to tell her about that. We're not going to tell her about using her lunchbox or her scissors. Okay, see how easy that cut? I should have started with these scissors if I had been a smart person. So then I can rip. I've cut up through his chest, through his rib cage, and then I am pulling it back so that I can see what's underneath. So I can get a good view of everything that is. He's a fat fella. He's got some good fat bodies. Okay. So this gives me kind of, well, let's cut the sides out too. Careful if you get eggs because you don't want to, they're messy. You don't want to puncture them. Okay, so now I pretty much expose his entire insides. See, I can have a good view of all of his organs and organ systems. Pause the video. Now, go ahead and open your frog up like I did, if you haven't already. Open his belly, get it to expose all of the parts. Look at you, you surgeon of frogs. So far, you have examined the outside, part 1. We've looked at the muscular system, which is part 2. We can still see a lot of that on his legs. And we've opened him up so that we can look at his or her insides, organs, organ systems. Now we want to start identifying organs and organ systems. And the way I like to do that is by using a paper towel. So you'll see some science teachers will have you like put the frog on a pan and use pins and pin all the organs. But that's, in my opinion, is a less effective way of actually seeing the organs. Because this way, what I'm going to have you do, we'll actually be able to see them close up. So we're going to use a paper towel, and I'll just show you because we're going to start with liver since that's on the top. So on the paper towel with a marker or a pen, just write the word liver. Don't judge my handwriting. Okay. So then we're going to take our frog and we're going to find his liver, which is right here on the very top. These things right here, these brownish, grayish things. Your frog's liver might not look exactly like this because you know that people look differently, right? You've looked at people and you're like, that guy has his father's nose and his mother's eyes. If he's Harry Potter, he has his mother's eyes anyway, and his father's hair, whatever. But what you may not have thought about is how the inside of a person also is unique. And if we walked around inside out, we would recognize each other's organs. We'd be like, that guy has his father's liver and his mother's spleen. Okay. And so the features, the organs are not identical. They have unique characteristics, just like the outside of us does. So this frog actually has a pretty large liver that covers most of his belly, and that's not the case all the time. So you may have it may not look exactly like this, but these lobes right here, this is his liver. So and if I get off screen, forgive me. I'm doing the best I can. Okay. Stop judging me. So I'm just cutting out his liver, and I actually cut it in half a little bit. And I'm going to put the pieces of liver. Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Frog. Okay, so I've got the liver right here on the paper towel. I can get a good view of it. So you can pick up the pieces and be like, ooh, liver, that's so livery. Okay, and what is the job of the liver? So you're going to look that up. I'm not going to tell you in the video. You're going to look it up, and you're going to write it down on the lab sheet. You've identified the liver, and you're going to answer some questions about the liver. And then we're going to go on. So go ahead and do that. And then when you're ready, come back. And let's find let's do his stomach. Okay, so this is his stomach right here. That right there. Sometimes you'll find a frog that's just eaten before he was killed. And so I've seen frogs that have maybe an insect inside, which is always kind of cool. Thing is that we don't want to cut out the stomach by itself. We want to try and cut out as much of the digestive system as we can, so we can see how it's just one long tube. So go to the top of the stomach and cut it out, and then very carefully, there's a lot of connective tissue that will hold it in place. Just kind of follow it down. You might have to cut some connective tissue. These yellow things right here are fat bodies. They're not an organ, they're just a bunch of fat because he's a fat frog. He was a fatty. Okay, and so you can see the stomach is attached to a bunch of loopy lines, a long tube that goes back and forth. What is that? It's intestines, right? And then a frog's large intestine is a little bit different than ours in shape, not in function. But his large intestine is... Our large intestine wraps around our small intestine. A frog's large intestine is found just at the back of the small intestine. It doesn't wrap around it. So I've got, dropped it. I've got his stomach. See if we can get a good view of that. I've got his stomach right here. It's hard to get a good view on the camera. I've got his stomach right there. And then his small intestines, and then at the end of his small intestines are his large intestines. And this frog had to go to the bathroom before he was killed. So there's poop inside his large intestines. When you have to go to the bathroom and you're like, oh, I gotta go potty, this is the part that's full. That's the part where the poop is. Okay, so I'm gonna put on my paper towel, I'm gonna write digestive system. So I've now got the liver identified and the digestive system, which is 3 organs. I've got the stomach, the small intestines, and the large intestines, and bonus poop, because it was my lucky day. Let me get this fat body. This is fat body. If you want to label that, you can put it on your paper towel so that you have fat bodies, right? Those are fat bodies there. And be careful because the lungs are back here. So his heart is right up here. And I did snip a little bit of it off, but it's right up here. And there's his heart. It was right behind his chest, see? Just like that. His chest opened, and right underneath it is his heart. So there's his heart. It's pretty small. It's about, what, the size of a pea? I cut his heart out. Literally. Put it there, and I'm going to label it on the paper towel. So, my marker is getting slippery because I'm covered in frog juice. There's heart, and we're going to label fat bodies. Okay, so frogs store their fat differently than humans do. We store our fat all over our bodies. Frogs store their fat in fat bodies in their belly. So all of their fat is stored in one place. We store it throughout our bodies. Those are the fat bodies. And towards the back, more fat bodies. And towards your back too, because remember, this is analogous to you. So we're finding things in the same place in the frog that we would find them in you. Back here on his back, right here, on both sides, there are 2 organs, right here and right here. These are the kidneys. Okay, you have kidneys on your back. If you feel your back, behind your back, touch your back, right about the same place, right above where your legs connect to your back, you have kidneys right there as well. There's the kidneys. Kidneys. So there's other organs that you might run into that I'm not going to go to the trouble of pointing out because frogs have lots of little tiny organs. You might find a spleen. It'll look like a kidney bean about right here underneath the liver. I really should have shown you this one before I cut it out, but I didn't. There's a gallbladder that's right underneath the liver. Another organ actually is in his mouth, which is his tongue. So if you want to pull his tongue out, frogs have this cool thing. They get that on camera. Their tongues flip forward. They come out. They're attached in the front, and they flip out backwards. If you want to see their tongue better, you can clip. No, don't get your finger, but you can clip the sides of his mouth like the Joker, and open his mouth up a little bit better so that you can see. There's his tongue. See how his tongue flips open? I do sometimes have students who go for his brain. If you're going to do that, it's right up here. It's really small. You're going to come in through his mouth. So if you want to try to dig the brain out, it's straight up through the head here. Kind of a cool thing to do. You have to be really, really careful, though, because it's small and it's easy to miss. So anyway, go ahead and pause the video. You're going to take all the parts of the frog out. You're going to get a paper towel. And when you're done, you want to have organs labeled and organ systems. And look at what we've done, okay? We've got 1, 2, 3, because there's 3 organs here. Stomach, small intestine, large intestine. Here's the liver, 4. Lungs are 5. Heart is 6. Kidneys is 7. Count fat bodies a day if we want. I should have done the gallbladder, but I didn't. So, but about 9 organs. You might find the spleen in there. Would be another one. Look at what you've done. Look how awesome you are. And how many people can say that they've seen the organs, the inside of an actual animal? Well, now you are one of them. So we started by step 1. Part 1 was looking at the outside of the frog, the epithelial tissue. Part 2, I had you look at the muscular system. Part 3, we looked at his organs and organ systems on the inside. And now we're going to look at the last thing we're going to do is look at his skeletal system in order to look at, because remember, guys, this frog, he literally sacrificed his life, right? Literally sacrificed his life for science. So we want to take advantage of that and use him fully. So the last thing we're going to do so that his sacrifice was a worthy one is we're going to look at his skeletal system. This takes some effort, and you have to be really careful with your scissors. So it takes some time. You're going to cut very carefully with the scissors as much of the muscle off of as much of the frog as you possibly can. So, this could take you a good half hour or longer to do. So you're just going to spend some time and very carefully go to town, but your scissors will easily cut through his bone, so be careful. There's one bone uncovered. I've taken all the muscle off of it, and I have the bone. I want you to do the entire frog. Do his entire leg on both sides, his little feetsies, his hands, and I want you to get an entire frog skeleton, because then you'll be able to really look at it. You'll be able to move his joints, examine what all the little parts, all the bones look like when that's all you have are frog bones. So take some time, pause the video. Like I say, you're not in a rush. Okay, plan on spending several minutes taking all of the remaining parts of the frog off, except for leaving the skeletal system. What is the most important thing that you have learned today? The most important thing that you have learned is that we are not telling my wife that I used her lunch tray or her scissors. That's a secret. Okay. The second most important thing that we've learned today is that, well, we've learned a lot of important things actually. So you've seen the outside of the frog, the epithelial tissue, the skin, and how it is so strong and durable, and how when you pinch it, you can't pinch through it because it's a protective layer that protects the frog. Same with your skin. I can pinch my skin, right? And thankfully, I don't pinch through it. I have evidence of that because I have mean older sisters who have pinched me very hard, and they didn't. Well, they did actually break a little bit of skin. But all I did was bleed a little bit. A chunk of my arm didn't come off. Then we removed the skin and we looked at the muscular system. If we were to remove your skin, we'd see the same thing. Just like we saw on the frog on his legs, we would see muscles, different muscles that are held together using connective tissue. And we would be able to take a pair of scissors and gently scrape along those that connective tissue and break apart your different muscles into individual muscles. And just like with frog, we pinched it and we were able to pull pieces of the muscle off. We could do that with you. Once we've had your skin out of the way, because that protective layer would be gone, we could take pieces of arm or leg or whatever muscle and pull it off. We removed a flap of his six-pack. I don't have a six-pack. I have a big fluffy pack, but a belly, an attractive dad bod. Okay, gosh. But the frog had a six-pack, and we were able to remove it and actually see the muscles of his six-pack. And then we cut up his chest, right, and his sternum up through his ribs, and we pulled those apart, and we were able to see his entire organ systems, all of his organ systems in his body. We were able to look at we pulled the liver out, and we were able to look at the digestive system as one complete tube from mouth to booty and everything in between, and see how his food or her food is digested. Maybe if you were lucky, you had a girl with eggs and you made a mess. We were able to see the fat bodies and different, kidneys and which are part of the excretory system, right? Liver, heart, lungs. And then we looked at the final thing we did was we looked at the skeletal system. So you took all of the meat, the muscle off of your frog, and you were left with a frog skeleton, and you were able to see what that looks like. You're the same way. If we took you and laid you out on a table, we could do all the same things we just did to the frog. It would be gruesome and horrifying, but we could see you have a protective layer of skin, and then you have underneath that a muscular system. And in your belly and chest, you have a bunch of organs, and they're pretty much the same organs the frog has, and pretty much, for the most part, with some small exceptions, in the same shape and the same location. And you have a skeleton. If we were to take all the meat, the remaining muscle off of you, you would be left as just a skeleton. So you can now envision what you look like and how you are organized. You know how cells combine to form tissues. You saw tissues in your frog. You saw the epithelial tissue, the skin. You saw muscle tissue. And if you went for the brain, then you saw nervous tissue, and you saw connective tissue, because connective tissue is connecting the muscles together, that clear stuff. So you saw all the different kinds of tissues. You saw that tissues combine to form organs like the stomach and the intestines, and you saw that they combine to form an organ system, one complete organ system, the digestive system. And you saw how all of these combine to form an organism. So well done. Good job. Go finish the lab sheet, which again is available on handsomescienceteacher.com, and you are awesome. Hi guys, thanks for watching my video. These rambling science videos where I go unscripted and just kind of barf up all the science knowledge out of my head are part of a series that go along with an online class that I teach, which you can sign up for if you go to handsomescienceteacher.com. I also have a whole bunch of free resources for homeschoolers. I have hundreds of articles on every topic that covers your entire science curriculum from 5th through 8th grade. I have online games and quizzes, all curated and written by this handsome guy, a science teacher with, well, three degrees, but 2 of them are in science. So it's targeted right to and directly to your science students. So sign up, subscribe to the channel, and I release lots of videos. Also, in addition to these ones, lots of little short videos that are like 2 minutes long that cover science topics. Those ones you don't get to see my handsome face, but they're still good videos, and they're much more targeted, and those ones are scripted, so you don't have to hear me like you are right now going blah blah blah. The end. Subscribe. Thank you. Goodbye.